Thank you all for coming. I'm Kathy Hudgens, Huntsville District Supervisor, and I want to thank RA for providing space for us. We can move around along Reston, and since our last meeting, this has been a good opportunity for us to catch up on the redevelopment in St. John's Wood. Rizzuto has spent over the last several months, and I guess quite a few months, during a few months, based on some of the key concerns and comments that have been brought to them. And at the May 4th meeting, we heard about the number of units and the density level, the massing of the buildings, the buffer along Center Harbor Road, and transportation issues. Tonight, I'm going to make sure, is it Eric or is it Ms. Patrick? You're going to do the presentation? Okay. Eric Fenton and Mr. Brian Winterhalter from Cooley are here to give the presentation and share with you where they have progressed with their submission before coming to the county. After that presentation, residents will be forwarded an opportunity to provide their comments and their concerns, and each individual will be given a time limit. We have a lot of people here tonight, so the opportunity to have as many people who want to speak. The time limits are 3 minutes if you're an individual, 5 minutes if you're an organization. We do have someone representing the community that's going to be speaking, and she will have the adequate time that she needs in order to provide her information. I just want to bring us up to the point of the understanding of where we are with the application. As it continues to move forward, it will come to the Planning Commission and to the Board of Supervisors, and that process provides, in both instances, public hearing from citizens as well. So we provide as much opportunity to give input in order to frame the results that come to the Board of Supervisors as best we can that reflects the concerns and the needs before we can move forward. So with that, I know that RA has hosted us here, and Ms. LaRosa is going to have some words from RA. That help? Thank you. And following that, we'll have the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone, for coming out tonight. I very much appreciate you taking time away from your family and your busy lives to do this, so thank you. I'm Danielle LaRosa. I serve on the Reston Association Board of Directors as its treasurer and its North Point representative. First, Reston Association is honored to be hosting this joint meeting with Supervisor Hudgens. Thank you very much. So what is the purpose of our meeting? The purpose tonight is to hear your comments from our members, and also especially those living close to St. John's Wood. Also, our purpose is to hear from Reston Association's committees. Now, I thank you very much for coming out tonight. There's a few residents out here who actually went door to door, handing out flyers, making sure that everyone really did know about the development and that this meeting was taking place. So thank you, and I look forward to hearing your comments. The way comments are being handled tonight, I don't know if you know, there's a sign-up sheet outside that you need to sign up, and they'll read your name, and then you can come up to the podium and give your 3 minutes. I also would like to thank the developer, Rizzuto, who has done quite a bit over these past months to adjust their application. And they've made these adjustments in order to address most of the public concerns expressed. And you will hear about those adjustments this evening. So after we hear your comments, where do we go from there? Larry Butler with Reston Association will get up later tonight to discuss Reston Association's process. Also, Reston Association will be issuing a St. John's Wood comment document. That's going to be based on your input, your comments tonight. It's based on feedback from RA's committees and from its board members. And once developed, that comment document will be sent to the Supervisor's Office, Fairfax County's planning staff, and the Reston's Planning and Zoning Committee. So I encourage each of you here this evening to provide your input process, or your input and your comments, including Fairfax County's opportunities to hear and consider your community input. Going forward, please make sure you check our website for updates and for future opportunities. Thank you very much for coming tonight.
Thank you, Supervisor Hudgens, and thank you to the Reston Association for hosting this meeting. I'm Brian Winterhalter with Cooley. I'm the land use attorney that's working on this project with Pizzuto. We're here with Eric Fenton of Pizzuto and Maria Lashinger of. Can you all hear me? Is this loud enough? A little louder. Louder than this? Is that good? Okay. I'll do my best to speak into this microphone. And Maria Lashinger with Grove Slade Associates, the traffic consultant for this application. For those of you who have been to our community meetings before, or the most recent in particular, the meetings at the Design Review Board and the Reston Planning Zoning Committee, you will see almost exactly the same presentation. We've made a couple of updates to some of the slides, but you will see largely the same presentation, so I just want to make you all aware of that in advance. Again, you've seen this before, many of you have. This is the extensive list of community meetings that we've attended as part of this project, including the Design Review Board, the Planning and Zoning Committees, and also several community meetings focused specifically for residents who live in the area of the St. John's Wood property. As Supervisor Hudgens noted, we have a Planning Commission public hearing scheduled. That meeting is currently scheduled for September 29th. However, I would like to inform everyone here that I think that date is likely to be deferred into October at some point. We don't have an exact date yet. The reason for that deferral I'll talk about as I move through the presentation. But the Planning Commission public hearing is likely to be at some point in October, which would then be followed by the Board of Supervisors public hearing. You know the context of the site. At the intersection of Center Harbor Road and Reston Parkway in the northwest quadrant of that intersection, it is north diagonally from the North Point Village Center. The existing condition of the property is development that has 250 multifamily units in 3-story garden apartment buildings. There are 9 buildings on the site today. All of the parking is surface parking, as you see in this image. Since the inception of the Reston Master Plan, this property, until recently, was planned for high-density development. Under the Reston Master Plan and the PRC district zoning, high-density development permits a total of 50 dwelling units per acre and 60 persons per acre. So that was the planning recommendation for this property since the inception of the Reston Master Plan. In October of 2014, we filed a development application on behalf of Pizzuto that proposed development in accordance with that high-density recommendation. At the time, our proposal consisted of 625 multifamily units and 34 townhouses, which represented a total density of 46 dwelling units per acre. After we had filed our application, the county underwent phase 2 of the Reston Master Plan special study. And as part of that study, there was an evaluation of the planning and zoning recommendations and comprehensive plan language in terms of uses and intensities for properties outside of the metro station areas, including this property. And there was a recommendation that the property be redesignated for medium density multifamily. And that recommends a density of between 21 and 50 dwelling units to the acre. There's no longer a person per acre factor in that comprehensive plan recommendation, but there are additional criteria in the comprehensive plan. Those criteria are here, and you can see them on the screen. I won't read them all verbatim, but I will just highlight a couple of things. They speak to tree preservation and preserving the buffer around the property, maintaining natural areas on the property, compatibility of design with adjacent development, pedestrian and bicycle connections, and the architectural treatment of the parking garages for the proposed development. So you can see that criteria here, but that's essentially the recommendation for the property, somewhere between 21 and 50 dwelling units to the acre in accordance with these recommendations. Our previous development proposal that you've seen the last time, the last round of submissions to the county and meetings with the Design Review Board and the Planning and Zoning Committee consisted of 2 multifamily buildings with townhouses along Center Harbor Road at a total of 511 multifamily units 51 townhouses at a density of 39 units per acre. That was our most recent proposal. Based on that proposal, we received a lot of feedback from you all, from folks who had come to the community meetings in the past, from the design review board, and also from the planning and zoning committee. And the substance of those comments with respect to design, we categorized into 4 major areas, and those you see here. Reduce the height of multifamily buildings, break up the massings to eliminate the long facade area, restore the tree buffer on Center Harbor Road, and ensure that there is better compatibility of the townhouses and the multifamily units in a more cohesive way. So what did we do to change the plan in order to meet those recommendations and to respond to your comments? So we did a number of things. This is the proposed development plan. This is our current proposal that we filed with the county. This is the proposal that we presented to the DRB and the PNC. It consists of 467 multifamily units and 46 townhouses at a density of 36 dwelling units per acre. As you can see in this image, we broke up the massing of the building, the western multifamily building, to break up that long facade with that notch in the building. We have also restored the tree buffer along Center Harbor Road, which you see in this image here, and we'll see in subsequent images. So the tree buffer along Center Harbor Road is back as part of this plan. We very clearly heard that that was a high priority, and we've restored that tree buffer. And we've also redesigned the layout of the townhouses. They are now staggered. They're a little bit less rectilinear, a little bit more natural and organic in terms of their configuration and the tree area around them. And the idea to do that was to keep that more in keeping with the layout and the design of townhouses in this area of North Reston and similar properties around us. So we wanted to achieve better compatibility and a more Reston-like character for the townhouses. This image shows you the existing conditions and the setbacks from the property lines for the existing development, and it's an overlay on top of our proposed development. So the red are the existing 9 multifamily buildings. The gray is the surface parking and drive areas on the site. And I won't read all these dimensions in detail. And by the way, we're happy to share this presentation with you afterwards, so you can get all this information. But just to run through a couple of these numbers briefly, if you can't see this from the back. Along the north, we have numbers in the 30, 33, 39, 28 range across the top. At the corner, at the very corner on the right, it's 55 feet. And then on the western side, we have dimensions of 72, 73, 77. And on the south, 65, 55, 70. So you're getting a sense of the setbacks of the existing development from the property lines. When you add the tree save area that we are proposing as part of our development, you see not only that we've restored the tree buffer on the southern portion of the property along Center Harbor Road, but you also see the extent of the tree preservation that we have and how that tree preservation is affected by the existing development. So we're essentially preserving all the trees we can that are around the existing buildings and parking areas. So this is a tree save image with our additional tree planting that will be part of the project. It's a little bit difficult to see here in the image, but the darker red is the tree preservation. The lighter red is additional tree planting that we'll be providing as part of the project. And then again, so here are some of these numbers in terms of the setbacks for the proposed development. And again, I won't read through all these. We're happy to share this information with you. The setbacks are very consistent, in many cases larger than the setbacks that we had before, in almost in all cases. We did hear from the Planning and Zoning Committee that with respect to the one stick of townhouses, specifically at the lowest point on Reston Parkway and at Center Harbor Road, where there's a 50-foot dimension, we were asked to tighten that up, and we may do that. We're going to look at that as part of our revision. So we have not made any changes to that effect, but we do acknowledge that we received that comment from the Planning and Zoning Committee. With respect to the amenities within the site, we will have a number of different types of spaces within the property. consisting of things like a dog park on the eastern portion of the site for residents and members of the community as well. We will have open space gathering areas. There will also be a more active courtyard space with a pool for the residents. The remainder of the areas will be mostly green areas, lawns, open space for passive and active recreation. Those areas will be publicly accessible as part of the development project. We also have a trail that goes all the way around the perimeter of the property that will be publicly accessible as well. We heard a number of comments about the massing of the building and the height of the building. That was one of the things that we wanted to focus on in terms of our revised design. And I'm going to go through each of the elevations for both of the multifamily buildings and show you where we've made those changes to the design. And you see here, this is the south elevation of building A. This is the eastern multifamily building looking south, looking basically at the townhouses in front of the proposed project. And you see on the right-hand side of the page here, 6 stories. We took a story off, and that is now 5 stories. There was some comments that we received about a portion of that area still being 6 stories, and there was a mistake on our prior drawing that I will point out to you in that other smaller circle here. So from here to here, and we had 6 stories of windows, but that was a mistake. There's not an occupiable story on the bottom floor there. So that's actually still only 5 stories. It's the way the grading of the site works. On the west elevation of the eastern multifamily building, again, you look on the left-hand side of the screen here, you see we reduced the building height from 6 feet down to, or 6 stories down to 5 stories. The north elevation, again, both sides of the building as they are projecting has gone from 6 stories in the previous proposal to 5 stories in the current proposal.
I'm sorry, can I ask a quick question? Which road is this piece of place?
This is the eastern multifamily building facing north. So this is the portion that is across from the existing townhouse development.
Faces the woods, the common
Yeah,
area.
faces the woods, yes.
I'm still confused. Would that be North Village is what you're saying?
Yes. No, sorry, that's to the east.
Okay.
North.
This stucco, this,
The back of Devonshire.
Yeah.
It's facing toward the pavilion.
So,
I guess that's what's confusing, what elevation is
so
facing
let's go back, okay.
When I say north, I mean this elevation. When I say east, I mean this side. South is this side, and west is this side. Okay? So does that help? Okay.
May I ask a technical question? And so what is the right on the left-hand side of this proposal, the right-hand side? What is the right of all of these buildings?
I do not have the answer to that question for you offhand, but I'd be happy to give it to you. I need to look at the contract. I'm absolutely trying to give you the answer to that question. So again, this is the west elevation of the eastern multifamily building. You see the reduction in height from 6 stories to 5 stories on the left-hand side of the page here. This is the north elevation of the western multifamily building. Again, reduction in height from 6 stories to 5 stories. The east elevation of that building, all the way across the board, reduction in height from 6 stories to 5 stories. This is the south elevation of the western multifamily building. Again, you see reduction of 6 stories to 5 stories on the right-hand side of the page. On the left-hand side of the screen, you see that we not only pulled the building back, but also reduced the height. So that is going from 5 stories to 4 stories. The elevation of the ground will change somewhat. And yeah, we have cross sections to show you that. So you'll see that. And I'm happy to give you that information after the meeting as well. This is the west elevation of the west multifamily building. This is the elevation that's facing Reston Parkway. You see we pulled a portion of the building back, moved a little bit of the portion of the building over here. But we've moved from 5 stories to 4 stories on the right-hand side of the page and 5 stories to 3 stories on the left-hand side of the page. This is the north elevation of the western multifamily building. This is the portion where we pulled a significant amount of the building back, broke up the facade, so you can see that in the middle here, and then again, we reduced the height of this building. This, in this image, from 5 stories to 3 stories. Here you see the architectural changes to the proposed townhouses. The comments we received from the DRB were that the townhouses were a little bit busy, had probably too many different types of architectural elements on them, and as the DRB described it, were a bit kitschy, and that they wanted us to have them be more compatible with the multifamily building, which, as you can see in the image below, we have done. So that architecture is much more consistent across the multifamily buildings and the townhouses. So I will go through all of the sections for the multifamily buildings. There isn't a lot to say, but I want to show them to you. So section AA is on the western side of the site, running through the multifamily building. So as you move across the page from left to right, you're starting at the townhouses across the treed area and moving south through the building. You see how the grade changes and gets higher. So it falls away a little bit, and the site falls away as you move north and east across the site. Here's the B section. This is the eastern part of the western multifamily building. Here's the C section, the western part of the eastern multifamily building. And the D section, which is the main part of the eastern multifamily building.
Well, where is the current elevation?
So I don't have an image that shows the current elevation, but we will have that for a future meeting. We were asked
I'm
to,
looking at the cross section, and what's the Reston Parkway is. How far, are you elevating everything? Are you building berms?
we're actually not elevating, we're actually lowering. So the site is going to be somewhat lower than it is right now.
If I'm walking across Reston Parkway from the other side of the street, I'm missing a little down to get to the ground level?
Yes.
I'm not going up.
No. You would be going down. Yes. These are east-west cross-sections, moving north-south, or moving across the building east-west, and we have different cross-sections going from the northern to the, yes?
Can you show us how people's cars are moving around here?
Yes, I can show you the plan view, it would be easier to show you. So,
Residents of this building come in here, come up here, and the garage is. Okay? Residents of this building, then in the garage, coming up this main road. Okay?
So now they have two ways in.
we have 2 entrances from, we have one entrance here
Off of North Village, this is an existing entrance.
Right.
And we're proposing the entrance here on Center Harbor Road. And the residents of each of the multifamily buildings are looking to use the 2 different entrances. That's what we expect.
What about for the townhomes?
The townhomes will have the same entrances.
I meant, where's their parking?
Their parking
Is it inside their building?
Yes.
They have underneath their townhomes parking?
Yes.
And that's it? Is there any other parking like out in front of their residence?
There are some, so there will be some surface parking for visitor parking along the road here and here and along here, along the road to different places. We have a number of surface parking spaces across the site for townhome visitors. Yes.
Just to clarify, to get to Center Harbor, you have to go through North Village, but it's still one entrance. But all being funneled.
No, this is the existing entrance.
So you're going to have 2 entrances on Center Harbor, is that what you're talking about?
We have 2 entrances, but one is on North Village, right here, that then comes down to Center Harbor.
Right, but that's.
And then
that's
an entrance here
One.
to Center Harbor directly.
So they're all close to Center Harbor.
That is correct.
So one.
Yes.
I just heard, talking about elevation for comparison's sake, as far as the 5-story, 3-story, whatever it is that above the current tree height?
No, it is not. I have a couple of images to show you, but there are very few points of the building, depending on kind of the undulation of the tree height, where it pokes through a little bit, but basically, the majority of the building is all below the tree line.
How about
All
on
the
the
way
east, on the
around.
east?
All the way around.
All
That's
right,
true all the way around.
where North Village
Yes,
is on that
that's
side.
true all the way around. Yes, I'm going to show
So
you.
it won't extend beyond, up above the tree, the existing tree line.
Yeah,
Is the
that's correct.
existing tree line gonna stay and you're gonna add more, or is some of that tree line coming away?
The tree line will be preserved, and we are adding additional trees as well.
But, so what's there today will stay?
Correct. That's
The
correct.
depth
Yes,
will stay?
yes. So I don't exactly remember where we were on all these cross sections, and I'm not sure that anyone is most interested in these anyway. But I do want to show them to you. So I think we were somewhere moving east-west. So this is cross section 1, the lower portion of the multifamily building. This is cross section 2, cross section 3, and here we have cross section 4. So again, I'm happy to share this with you. You can study it and let us know if you have any questions, but these are the cross sections for the multifamily buildings. Yes?
Do you have parking on that property for everybody who is going to move in there?
Yes.
How many places?
I don't have a
How
specific
many
number.
spaces per unit?
So the requirement for multifamily is 1.6 spaces per unit. The requirement for townhouses is 2.7 spaces per unit. We are providing slightly more parking than required by the zoning ordinance. And if you'll humor me for a moment, I can look up the plan and give you the exact number, but it's a little bit more than we're required to provide by zoning.
It's 960. I got the number from there.
So I will get you that number, but I'm going to move through the rest of the presentation. So this, I think, is an image that you will find hopefully helpful in understanding the massing of the building and how it sits in the site in its relationship with the existing development and surrounding development. So this is an aerial perspective that the architect put together, and you can see the comparison of the massing and the height of the proposed building and what's there today. And what you'll see is that the majority of the building is basically either at or 1 story above the existing buildings. And the reason for that is there are 5-story portions of this building, there are 4-story portions of this building, and there are 3-story portions of this building, or these buildings. And we've attempted to have the height be reduced as much as possible around the perimeter. So it's 3 and 4 stories around the edges, and then 5 stories more in the middle portion of the development in order to be as sensitive as possible to the surrounding existing uses. And if you look, you see the existing development is 3 stories and has a pitched roof. So when you're comparing our proposed development at 3, 4, or 5 stories, 3 stories with a pitched roof is going to be roughly the same height as 4 stories of our building. So where we have 5 stories, we're basically 1 story taller. Where we have 4 stories, we are even with the existing development. And where we have 3 stories, we're probably lower than the existing development, which you can see here where there are roof lines of the existing development poking through our proposed buildings. That's where the existing development is taller than our buildings.
Could you point that out? I don't know.
Yeah, like, for example, if you look here, this roof is taller than our proposed building at this corner right here, right? This roof here is taller than our proposed building right here. Right? Part of that, yes.
Is that Devonshire behind this?
No, it's Park Garden
Who's
Lane.
behind this?
Is it possible to turn down the lights so we can see?
It's,
Part of what's
it's Park Garden.
It's Park Garden Lane.
Park Garden.
That's a Oh, no, right,
Yeah.
that's what I meant.
And it's
Park garden.
yeah,
Not that one, I'm thinking, yeah, it's park.
yeah, it's that one that splits into two.
Yeah, right,
Okay.
So just to orient everybody, so this is Reston Parkway.
Right,
This is Center Harbor Road.
yes.
These lighter colored blocks here are the proposed townhouses for our project. And these are the two multi-family buildings.
How high are the floors of the existing buildings and of the new proposed buildings? Are they 8 feet, 6, 9 feet, 6?
I don't know, the nine.
I think there are 8 with existing.
This is the same image just around from the north. So again,
This is the northern property line here.
North.
This is north. Right, okay. This is west, Reston Parkway, going north. And this is south. The proposed townhouse here.
Do you have an image when there's no leaves on it? Like what else? No, I'm serious.
No leaves.
I mean, I'm serious.
It's a lot of building to
It's
say.
a very large mass. It'd be interesting
Yeah,
to
that's a
see
large,
the difference between the trees and the big little fluffy things and no color things.
we do not have that image in
Oh,
this.
it'd be interesting to see.
We do have a comparison of the height of the proposed development with the tree line, which you can see here for all four sides of the multifamily building. Okay? So,
This dashed line, the current height of the trees, okay? This is an approximation that we got on Google Earth. This is the southern facade, so this is facing Center Harbor Road. This is the north. This is from the east, and then this is from the west, so this is all west.
And you're not tearing any of those trees down?
no.
I have a question.
Yes.
If you could go back 2 slides. Where is the entrance, where are the entrances on this, from Center Harbor Road to Congress? Are they showing? Can't see.
Here,
There's one, yeah.
And how far is that from the intersection? What's the relationship to the bus stop?
the bus stop is down here. We have a whole lot of traffic information that we'll show you in our slide.
Okay. So this is the comparison of the height of the building to the tree line. Yes.
Question, it's about 500 units. How many are 3-bedroom? How many are 2-bedroom?
Eric Fenton with Mizuto can answer that question.
I don't think we've proposed any 3-bedrooms in this. We don't have a final unit.
Not even in the townhouse.
Townhouses will have to be 3-bedroom.
And please confirm whether these are all rental or you plan to sell.
These are all
These
rental.
will all be rental, including the townhouses.
When will you know if it's gonna, so the apartments are only gonna be 2-bedroom? Did that's confirmed, or are you still up in the air about it?
A lot of it depends on the final building we have, but it'll likely be a mix of studios, 1 and 2 bedrooms, possibly some 2 bedrooms of a den.
So like a 3, that's the big 3. Yeah.
And maybe in a location like this would be approximately, I'd say 60% 1 bedroom.
And those are the parking spaces.
Okay, maybe it's appropriate to ask questions after presentation so that everybody can
Yeah.
hear the
Maybe
responses.
we
No, I'm
need
just
the
saying,
information
it will
now.
come, you will answer the questions, it's just that everybody cannot hear, the questions. If you finish the presentation, so go back to the specific slides if you have questions, and you will address the answers.
So we should write down our questions, right?
So that concludes the design-oriented portion of the presentation. So again, if you have any design questions, we'd be happy to answer them as we move forward. But I know that the traffic impact has been a question and a concern for many people, and we want to provide information about that. We've provided a lot of this information before, so again, if you were at the Planning and Zoning Committee meeting or the DRB meeting, a lot of this information will be repeated, but I want to give you this information for the benefit of anybody here who hasn't been to some of our earlier meetings. So these are the pedestrian connections throughout our site. The light blue is proposed with our development, and the existing is in purple. Yes, sir.
Yeah, can you go back to the last slide that showed the 4 elevations, or the 4 sides? Yeah, that one. The third one down, where it says Building A, I don't know whether I'm looking at this right or wrong, but it almost looks like it's 7 stories.
You're seeing different portions of the building. As the grade changes, the height of the building line, the top of the building moves with the grade. So where you're seeing, like, in other words, you're seeing in perspective. That
So it's a depth perception.
Yes, correct. The building is taller back here in perspective because the grade is changing here, but the building is lower here.
Okay.
So it's still 3, 4, or 5 stories all the way across the whole site.
Okay.
The grade is changing a little bit. Okay. These are existing and planned bicycle facilities. I'm going to try to move through this relatively quickly because I know you really want to get some more questions, but I will give you some of this traffic information. So these are areas that are walkable or bikeable from the site, and I won't go through them in detail, but you can see them on the screen here. There are several bus routes that serve the property, commuter bus routes, off-peak bus routes, but there are bus routes that go to the metro station. These are existing traffic counts, and I'm definitely not going to go through this in a lot of detail, but I will fast forward and say the existing level of service at all of these intersections, they all function at an acceptable level of service under current traffic conditions today. This is future background traffic without our proposed development. There's an assumed growth rate in traffic when the traffic engineers do the traffic analysis, and this is what that shows. With that future growth in traffic in the background condition without our proposed development, all of these intersections still function at acceptable levels of service.
What's the definition of acceptable levels?
We're going to talk about that in a couple of minutes. And Maria, our traffic consultant, will answer that question. When you add the proposed trips from the new development, again, all of these intersections function at acceptable levels of service. There are also some approach delays that are added from the proposed development, although they are very minimal. And I will run through those. We have all this information to share with everybody, but they are very minimal. There's an increase in delay at the Reston Parkway and Center Harbor Road intersection of 7.5 seconds. This is the distribution of trips throughout the site and the surrounding intersections. And you see that here. So after we presented this traffic analysis, we heard 4 principal comments and concerns. One, that the traffic study was done prior to the opening of the metro station, and therefore the traffic counts should be updated in order to take into account the operation of the metro station. That we do a queuing analysis for Center Harbor Road and the site entrance. Center Harbor Road and Reston Parkway to see how it relates to the site entrance. And to explore the addition of an entrance on Reston Parkway. And then also that we've heard some very specific concerns about the speed of traffic, site distance issues, and overall pedestrian and vehicular safety, mostly with respect to the speed of vehicles traveling on Center Harbor Road. So we are going to update the traffic study. Traffic counts can only be done when school is in session. They will be done in mid-September, and we will come back to you and the DRB and the P&Z with updated, and also Fairfax County as well, with updated traffic study. We've done a queuing analysis with the traffic study, and this is the 95th percentile queue in the morning. You see that there is additional traffic that's queuing up at the site entrance along Center Harbor Road. keep in mind, however, that this is the 95th percentile queue. This is not the average. This is not what's going to happen most of the time, or even very much of the time. This is going to happen about 5% of the time in the peak hour. This is the PM condition that shows that the cars do not queue up past the site entrance. And then a better average queue is the 50th percentile queue, and you see that here in the AM and the PM, and that there are no issues with the proposed site entrance. We have asked VDOT and Fairfax County's Department of Transportation about meeting to talk about an entrance on Reston Parkway, and we were very specifically told that the VDOT does not support such an entrance, and neither does Fairfax County DOT. They are not willing to approve or really even evaluate in much detail an entrance at that location. So we are left with a situation where we don't have an option for an entrance on Reston Parkway, and there are traffic concerns related to Center Harbor Road. And although the traffic study shows that there is very little impact from this proposed development, we understand that that's not necessarily what you experience in terms of your traffic quality of life on a day-to-day basis. And we've heard and we appreciate a lot of concerns about safety and people speeding on Center Harbor Road. So one of the things that we have an option to do is explore traffic calming measures as part of a traffic study. And that might include collecting speed data for Center Harbor Road, and also options like restriping Center Harbor Road to narrow the lanes. We could add bike lanes. We could stripe out surface parking areas, put the road on a road diet, if you've heard that term, and I'll show you some images in a second. We could install speed humps or other physical devices in the road. That is a possibility. We could also potentially add a four-way stop at the Center Harbor Road North Village intersection. And we are willing and committed to do this study if you all are interested in it, and it would be subject to approval by VDOT and Fairfax County Department of Transportation. This is an image of a road diet. I won't spend a lot of time on this, but you see in the images here what can happen with the same road. This is Oak Street in Dunloren. This is Soapstone, a little bit closer to home here in Reston, and you can see that bike lanes were added, and it has been effective at reducing speeds on this roadway. There are other things that we can do as part of an overall traffic calming initiative that would benefit pedestrian safety, and they include striping additional crosswalks, adding pedestrian activated crosswalk signals. We want to make sure that there is a safe pedestrian route along Center Harbor Road to Buzz Aldrin Elementary School. We've been told that there are some areas where there's either a crosswalk missing or the sidewalk isn't wide enough, and we're happy to look at that and see where we need to widen the sidewalk or add a crosswalk, which we can do. And then the idea of potentially relocating the bus stop and adding a bus shelter to give people who are driving down Center Harbor Road some additional visual cues that there are other people on Center Harbor Road besides motorists, and that will hopefully help slow people down and improve pedestrian safety. Again, this is the route all the way to Aldrin Elementary, and we will be looking at the entire path all the way there to see if there are any improvements that need to be made in order to improve pedestrian safety to the elementary school. There were some questions at prior meetings about relocation assistance and how Bozzuto will be working with the existing residents of the St. John's Wood development, and you see those items here, and we certainly will be doing that, and Bozzuto will be implementing that as part of the project assuming we move forward. We made a number of proper commitments. I'm not going to go through all these in detail. If you see them here, I'm happy to share our proper statement with you. These are commitments that we've made to the county as part of our development project. One thing I would like to note, as it's been a question and a consideration for folks, is we have very robust proffers about tree preservation, which will be coordinated with the county's urban forester before we develop the property. There will be tree surveys done. There will be walking the site with the urban forester, marking trees to be preserved, setting up tree preservation fencing. So we have a significant set of commitments related to preserving the existing trees that are living on land to be preserved. And with that, I will close my presentation, and if you have any additional questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
You mentioned that VDOT, CDOT,
Yes.
would not entertain an entrance onto Reston Parkway.
Yes, that's correct.
But
Did they just arbitrarily say no? Did they give a rationale? Is there a reason? Because it seems like I think most of the residents who live in that area would highly favor that in terms of supporting this. At least they're moving in the right direction.
Three things to mention to that. First, Center Harbor Road is a lower classification road than Reston Parkway. And although it may not function that way at the moment, it was designed to have lower speeds than Reston Parkway. Reston Parkway is a higher classification road, a bigger road, and a faster road. And in general, where there are site distance issues, in particular, VDOT would strongly prefer, to not have additional entrances on higher classification roadways when there are other options. And they were very clear about that when we talked with them. The second consideration is that the Fairfax County Department of Planning and Zoning, unrelated to purely traffic movement concerns, wanted to preserve the tree buffer along Reston Parkway, and that Reston Parkway is a nice, beautiful parkway, and it's got trees along a lot of its frontage, and the county planning department wanted to preserve that, so we heard that comment from the county as well. And then lastly, I know that there have been many people at community meetings and P&Z meetings and the DRB meetings who have been focused on the Center Harbor Road entrance. But I will tell you that we've also heard from folks who live across the other way, across Reston Parkway, and they were not as enthusiastic about that entrance. So we've heard that comment as well. Yes, ma'am.
Have any studies been done as to how the increased number of units in this property will impact the schools in the area, adding numbers of students to the schools?
Yes, those studies have been done, and the proposed development based on Fairfax County Public Schools formulas, not our numbers, the county schools do their own evaluation, and they have factors for the type of development and the number of students that are generated by that development that are county formulas that they update periodically. The county formulas has a student generation ratio for mid-rise multifamily development and mid or high-rise and low-rise multifamily development. We fall in the mid-high-rise category. The existing development is in the low-rise multifamily category. And because the student generation is less in a mid or high-rise multifamily building than it is under a low-rise multifamily building, the county schools analysis says that there will be fewer students generated by the proposed development than the existing development.
I have a
You've given us a lot of technical information.
Yes.
About the height, access to trees and so forth and so on. And we know that Reston is changing with Metro, we've seen Harrison House, another high rise is going up in the town center. But have you thought about, and can you talk to us about how this development is going to change the character of the neighborhood? The character of the neighborhood is important. Character counts. For a project of this nature to be in and around the town center, I don't think anybody would have any query. But this is a massive, absolutely massive development that's going to change the character of the neighborhood. And I think it would be important for you to speak to this. And how do you see this impacting the character of the neighborhood? Not just in St. John's Wood, but in and around the whole North Point area.
So I think this development will have much less impact on the character of the neighborhood than you may anticipate. With respect to the immediately surrounding developments, there will be, this development is below the tree line, it's within the tree buffer, and we've worked hard to revise the design of the building to reduce the massing across the entire site, but especially around the edges. So you're not going to see a lot of the proposed building behind the tree buffer. With respect to the overall character of the area, keep in mind that this area was always planned for high density. Under the original Reston master plan, part of the idea for the higher density residential areas was to support the village centers, which were also envisioned to be gathering areas and places where there would be a mix of uses and higher intensity uses. So we are diagonally across from the village center, And this level of development, even higher than this level of development actually, was always intended for this area as part of the original Reston master plan. So we've done a lot to try to fit the building into the character and make it compatible with the surrounding development. But it's always been planned for a high-density use of the site.
Original plan or the revised?
The original
What
plan.
about the revised plan?
The revised plan, so the original plan was 50 units to the acre. The revised plan is somewhere in a range of 21 to 50 units to the acre. And we're at 36. So we're sort of in the midpoint of that revised range.
Maybe if the first plan wasn't correct, maybe the second one is right.
Well, we've also been through, this is not the second plan. This is probably the fourth plan, at least.
Well, then that's not a good plan, I use it right.
Well, I probably would do better to describe it in this manner. There is and I was trying to get you to the questions for Brian, so that you could really reflect on his application versus the larger plan that adopted for Reston and by the county. Reston's plan has all of the granted density that was approved in 1964. And it was designed for the density to be out throughout the community and to support the village centers. Basically, what we've seen is it's been underdeveloped. It's less in every place. And so there are only a few places that allow more density than what you will see being maintained in the neighborhoods. For example, if you live in a cluster, and let's say that there are 100 homes that are owned in that cluster, there is likely to be more density there, but it is likely to be undeveloped because the 100 people are never going to sell their homes right away and go away and redevelop it. So the only places that you see this density occurring is where the multifamily units are. And they're usually near the village centers. All of the village centers were intended to be supported by people so that there could be activity. The opposite of this is Tall Oaks, where it really died because it didn't have the support and the opportunity to function well. So this is the density, and I didn't want you to get too far off on that versus trying to figure out how you can answer questions to the application that's forward before we ask folks who have already signed up. And I think the way you try to do it is that we get folks who are signed up first, and then we can go to questions off the floor. And we had Suzanne Anderson DeSoto, did I do it right? She's asked for, and she has, I think, been communicating throughout the neighborhood. So she is representing those voices that she has heard in terms of the reflections for Brian to hear with hers. And we can leave that line.
Thank you so much, Supervisor Hutchins and Reston Association for hosting this meeting. Hopefully, we're hoping to get on the books because according to my understanding, a lot of the community feedback that's being provided verbally in a lot of meetings has not been reported by anyone. A little louder.
You gotta speak up.
I have a hand mic. I can take that one. I can take that. Is this better?
Yeah.
All right, thanks. So according to my understanding, a lot of the community feedback that has been raised, even though the students taking some of that into account, has not been recorded. So for instance, in meetings, in prior DRB meetings where a lot of community members were there raising concerns, none of that was recorded in the meeting minutes. So I have respectfully requested that the letter that I've submitted on behalf of 144 signatories be amended to the meeting minutes of this meeting. And also, I'd like to request that we can continue to add to enclosure 1, which has all the community signatures, additional signatures if more members sign up for this letter. I do have copies here if anyone is interested. As I'm talking to the points. We have 7 points, and also a lot of the community members have raised other concerns in addition to these 7 points. The first one relates to the non-compliance with mass and architecture standards for St. John's Wood. So you have a copy or from the large revised Reston Master Plan, which was adopted last June 2015. And let me take you down memory lane a little bit, because I understand what Supervisor Hutchins just mentioned, that originally was designed to be high density. But in that discussion during the Reston Master Plan revision last year, the planners actually considered low density family units. A letter was submitted on behalf of Bozzuto by Coolidge. I think Mr. Riddle submitted that and requested that it be up to medium density. The Fairfax County planners agreed with that, and they upped the original plans of the revision to the Reston Master Plan. So actually, the original thinking in the Reston Master Plan was to leave the dwelling units as it is today in that area. Now, fortunately, these planners thought of us in some regard. So they added some other language, some other conditions, and that is what I've highlighted in the handout. I ran out of ink, so I couldn't make enough copies for this meeting, but I do want to make sure that everyone understands that according to their current Reston Master Plan, this design is not in compliance. I shall read to you what it says. St. John's Wood, the architecture and massing of the development should feature context-sensitive design that fits into the natural and architectural character of the surrounding areas. Thank you, whoever that was in the Fairfax Planning Office that added that. This is clearly not in alignment with that. All the pictures that are shown by clearly it's not in alignment with that. So I think we have to go back to the drawing board and say that, if you do your checkbox, yes, it fits the number of units, but it doesn't fit this criteria, and it has to fit all the criteria in the Reston Master Plan. Otherwise, the DRB, Fairfax County, Reston Planning and Zoning is not doing their jobs. So that's the first one. Regarding the architectural character, this is clearly not, anything that's like anything in the neighborhood. It fits, Reston Town Center better, and therefore it just doesn't fit. My next point relates to the traffic exits. So we've talked about that extensively, so I'm not going to spend too much time on that. But my understanding is that VDOT also has a concern about the exit onto Reston Parkway, because it will kind of disrupt the traffic of the inflow from this new cluster. And can you imagine then how the residents feel in the neighboring communities if it will disrupt the traffic on Reston Parkway? How much will it disrupt the traffic in our neighborhoods? It clearly is wrong. And the recommendation is that the entrance be moved to the Reston Parkway. I understand there may be some people on the other side of Reston Isle on Great Isle Drive that are not in agreement with that. But whatever we do, the exits need to be there before the demolition and the deconstruction starts. We don't want to have big trucks, massive amounts of construction material going through our neighborhoods. Okay? Third point with regards to the management of overflow street parking, and this was not in the original letter, so some of you may have signed this petition before this was here. So there's two concerns regarding this. So we all know now that there's less than 2 parking spaces per unit. I think it's about 1.9 or 1.85 or something like that. I'm from Sweden. In Sweden, a lot of households have 1 car. But like my husband says, I'm not in Sweden anymore. This is Northern Virginia suburbs, and most households have 2 cars. That's just a fact of life when you live in Virginia, outside of DC or Arlington. So that has to be considered. The capacity planning for this unit has to be reconsidered as far as parking spaces. It's very, very important. Okay? The other comment around that is that Bozzuto has a cluster down the street from this, which clearly did not have good capacity planning, or otherwise is not able to manage the overflow of parking on the streets. So there's a picture in the document, in the last letter. I took it on Tuesday evening. I counted 27 cars from the Harbor Point cluster parked on the street on Center Harbor. This is a common problem. I walk my son to school there all the time, and I know that the people that live in that complex does not park in the complex. This will be the same issue here. I think 500 units, 5-10 people have guest parties. You have 50 cars suddenly. Where are they going to go? We're going to have to consider that there's nowhere for the parking for this cluster to go. There just isn't. Yeah.
I don't know if this picture is an ongoing problem.
It is an ongoing problem.
Just so you're aware, we're retaining the parking right now. I saw this picture, I did call the parking manager, and they're currently redoing the asphalt, so residents are being asked.
It is a common problem, though.
I had pictures for 5 years of cars parking there, not to mention buses. Yeah.
This is normally how it looks like on evenings and mornings as we walk to school. And I feel that Mizuno needs to address that concern. How will you manage overfull parking of this complex when there's nowhere to go? You can't park on Center Harbor there. If you do, it's going to create mayhem. If you park in North Village, you'll disrupt the traffic flow there. So where are guests and street side parking going to go? Are they going to go down to the North Hills parking area? Are they going to park in North Village? It's a real concern, and you guys need to revisit your capacity planning for parking. It's very important. Okay.
Is your sense that
I can't hear them.
Can't hear.
I just want to ask, I'm not trying to interrupt, but has this overflow parking problem, have you guys seen an increase in the problem since the metro came online?
No. It's been there. It's been there. We live across the harbor part.
Yeah. I mean, clearly, in general, all the apartment complexes in Reston have not, lived up to the capacity planning of parking spaces. Because if you look at a lot of apartment units, there is a lot of street parking. And I don't think that that's how Reston intended it. We are all supposed to be parking within our cluster boundaries. And that has to be the principle for this residency. And you guys have nowhere to go. There's no people can't park on the street there. So you have to address it. And if they do, there'll be, as I said, there'll be a safety concerns and other matters. So you have to reconsider the number of spaces that you're going to allow for parking per unit. And you also have to address how you're going to manage the overflow. Because quite frankly, I don't want North Village pavement cars. Yeah. Exactly, the mass. I would go back to the mass. You guys have too many units. Okay, I'm going to quickly go through the other points. Tree preservation, it's to be applauded that Mizuno is addressing that, and thank you so much for adding more. But I think that this cluster, just like any other cluster, needs to live up to the standards of Reston Association. You need to submit in your plan all the trees that will be removed, and you will need to clarify if you're removing trees that are not dead or sick. I just went through that in my cluster. I'm the vice president of the cluster. We had to submit all the 60 trees, take pictures of them, show where they're removed and why they're removed. So Mizuno has to submit that in the plans as well. In addition, if even after that plan has been submitted and maybe approved, if the additional trees are to be cut down during construction, I submit that the Mizuno has to submit that information to the adjacent clusters so we can all, follow along in additional tree cutting. I think we've already addressed the limited visibility from adjacent clusters. I find all these drawings to be not what I would expect from Mizuno. We would like to see street side drawings from all the adjacent properties and streets, both with leaves and without leaves. It's very important. It has to be part of the plan that's approved.
How about a model so people can see in 3 dimensions?
3D model.
Yeah, a 3D model, but even the picture so that we can see how is it going to look when I go down to Center Harbor, North Village, how is it going to work in the clusters behind, etc., with and without foliage. I think that's very important. The length of the redevelopment project I find to be very fuzzy. I don't really understand it. There has to be, we're all project managers. Mizuno has to have a bunch of them. You guys need to have much more clear plans around this. How long is the demolition gonna take? How long is the construction gonna take? You know, what if you have delays? Are you gonna be in cranes? What kind of construction equipment are you gonna bring in? How long is it gonna be there? All of those details need to be submitted. I have one more point. That is the community feedback and comments. I'm really concerned when I hear, please go to the Reston website to look for upstate. We cannot continue this process anymore. The community around the clusters around this area needs to be provided detailed updates by the supervisor's office and Reston Association directly, household to household. We need to get things in writing. I was told last week that, you know, the Reston Association prefers that the developer pays for that. And quite frankly, I don't really care who pays for it. But going forward, all meetings, all decisions, all revisions to plan, etc., should be communicated to each household around this area. And I also recommend that the DRB process in place today does not lend itself well for this discussion. Neither does the planning and zoning format where people are limited to 3-minute discussions. I was allowed more time today and I appreciate that. But I would like to suggest that we have more of a community forum where representatives from the community come together, sit down in a round table and discuss plans. Okay?
Thank you, Susan, for you doing your launch legwork of going around the community. We appreciate the input. And Mr. Linenhalter can come back later and respond to some of the questions asked. Because people have signed up, I'd like to go ahead and call, and there are only 6 people that are signed up, so that they can speak. And, you have 3 minutes, and the reason we're limiting you is it's a large room, and there may be others, and maybe Goldie, you may want to see if we can get names, if there's anybody else, that way we don't have so much back and forth. Gary Vogel?
Right here.
Okay.
I
And this
know
mic,
these guys.
this mic should work, and if not,
Any other speakers that
This
might
is the
sign up?
fourth time that I have provided feedback to this. The fourth time I've provided feedback, and it's been consistent. This is too large. This is way too large. It's twice what's there now. Twice. And, you know, if you guys had decided maybe 300 units, which is 300 apartments with 50 townhomes, that's 100 more units. That makes more sense to me. I would support that. But doubling it, that is insane, even if it is a higher density. I also am concerned about North Village Road, and that should definitely be in the traffic study. North Village Road runs through a park. People use it as a park. It's not meant to be used as a vehicle for people running right through it and traffic going through it. Those people who live close to North Village Road in your developments are going to use that road to get to Wheeling. And you know what the speed limit is there now? 10 miles per hour through a park. Because it is a park. People use it as a park. They walk their dogs there. There's many, it's just like, I can't imagine what's going to happen. My house backs right up to North Village, and people come to a stop there. Some people do. Other people go right through. There really has, I think 50% of the traffic may well go that way, because they're not going to want to go to Center Harbor. That's too backed up. They're going to head down towards Wheeling. And, you know, it's a winding road with poor sight lines. It's asking for trouble. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Vogel. And the next person is Jean Basterling. Yes.
So thanks. I don't know what exactly I can add, but I'll try and add what's been said. First of all, talk about top level view without trees, and they didn't have one first meeting I went to, and that's when I went and pulled the picture with the trees so we could see what was happening to the trees that were gone. When we're looking at this, which is the comprehensive plan criteria that was mentioned at the beginning, as Reston criteria, and you mentioned very well that it is not context sensitive to the area. So if you live in this area, think about it, where you live and the neighbors around you. There are clusters, there are homes. There is no big buildings like this anywhere except down the street in town center, where this belongs. So it's not context sensitive to where we live. When we were in the design meeting, one of the people on the board had mentioned, go out and look at the neighborhood and see what it's like, and then you'll know what to build. Well, I'm not sure they did that, because the look of these buildings is not anything like I see in the neighborhood. And I live right across the street in Hampton Point. Now, traffic. You mentioned something interesting. I wasn't aware that they didn't have enough parking places. If there's not enough parking places, given the 2.5 cars per unit that I heard for the townhouse and one something for the others, they're going to be in the street. They're already in the street. I already can't take a left-hand turn out of Hampton Point because it curves there. And if there's a car parked there, I can't see it coming. So there I am. Now I've got to work with this guy across the street or have his car parked over here. It's going to be a problem that I don't think is being considered in the traffic patterns. I know you said that VDOT and others don't want us to pull out on Reston Parkway. Have they considered, have you presented to them the opportunity for northbound cars on Reston Parkway to take only a right turn into not a left turn from the north, but going north, a right turn in, and leaving the complex by taking a right turn only. So you eliminate all the left turns, but traffic can go in and out. And that would certainly help, although it's too many. I don't have anything else. Thank you very much for your help.
And the next is Mr. Steve Cantor.
Thank you. I'm Stephen Cannon. I live in Belcastle Court, which is off of Waterfront, which is off of Central Harbor. I have about 4 points to make. First is awareness of this project. I think most people in this room are from St. John's Wood or the immediate area. But if you go a little bit further, I don't think people are aware of the nature of this project. You were in a cluster factory the other night, and their cluster of just 18 townhouses. And I and one neighbor were the only people who knew about this project. Unfortunately, there was a young lady coming around to inform everybody. So now we had, as a result of a little gathering we got about 6 or 8 signatures opposing this project. So I think you've got to reach out to a broader community about what this is going to do to the character, context, as it says here, of design to this neighborhood. I asked you the question about the width, because if you look at some of these buildings here, everybody has been focusing on the height of the tree line, but the size of them, the width of them, even with the grade between the buildings, is humongous. I was driving out of the metro Kiss and Ride, and at that red light when you come out, if you look down to the left, you see these buildings with a tide deck on them, these apartment buildings that are being built, and they're only 5 stories high, but yet the width of them was absolutely humongous. And I said to my wife, this is what St. John's Wood is going to look like. It's not the right place for this development. This development belongs someplace else. So for those of you, and I said, you, go down to the parking area where the Kiss and Ride is, and look at those apartment buildings, and ask yourself, is this context-sensitive design that you are proposing for this neighborhood? I don't see how you can say that it is. As for the development sensitivity, ratio numbers, that this falls well under this ceiling, I think the people in this neighborhood say, you know, we like it this way. This is fits in with the context. And you have to point out that tall oaks went down because there's not enough development to support that village concept. Sure, Giant moved out. But if you look at North Point, Giant is thriving, and all those shops are doing pretty well. They don't need any more support. So I would I can't even read my reading. This project does not belong in our neighborhood. It is not sensitive. Enough people do not know about it. So I ask you guys, please find another place. Thank you.
I skipped over Chris Livingston.
Hello, I'm Chris. I live right across from Buzz Aldrin, and I've got 2 kids that are eligible to start Aldrin next year. I am a volunteer photographer for the Reston Association, very active in the community. This is my second residence in Reston. My wife and I had the opportunity to move. I could have saved a good bit of money and moved into Herndon, but we chose Reston because it's green and it's peaceful and it's got a low density feel to it. I think that's its biggest charm. If you want lots of apartments and lots of traffic and lots of stress, Tyson's is right down the road. And I know that because I work there and I drive it every day. And you can feel it. You come back home and I'm driving down 7 and I turn left on Barron Cameron. It's just it's a peaceful feel and it's a low density. It's the nature of it in those neighborhoods. And I don't want that to be
And Sharon Cantor.
Hi, I'm Sharon Cantor, and I also go to Belcastle Court with Stephen Cantor. We've been in Reston since 1971, in our 3rd home. We moved to Reston because of being a planned community. It has just so many amenities. A couple points, concur with Suzanne's excellent points. And thank you, Suzanne, for doing all that homework. We're right next to Harbor Park, so there are lots of cars, and I know you're doing some repaving, but there are it's an overflow of cars. It's a pretty dense area. I would just ask Bizzuto to look at, I always look at Isaac Newton Square where I go and work out, and recognizing there are some issues with Isaac Newton Square. It's huge. There are such possibilities for a mixed-use development, and I would love to see residences in there, retail, recreation, which we certainly need in Reston. So those are my points. Love Reston. We don't have a cemetery, so we'll have to carry me out, but I love it. And I want to preserve our neighborhood and that property value. Thank you.
And from the sign up, and I'm going to call all the names and they'll know when they're finished. Daniel Bellin, Arlene Reinhardt, Darlene Blabrick,
Yes.
and Margaret Finner. And those are the next ones.
Hey
Daniel Bellin. I reside in Park Garden Lane, Windsor Park, so actually right just north of that tree line from the community. I agree with many of the points and many of the concerns about the density. I think there is a possibility for a higher density locale. I'm not necessarily quite as convinced as some of you on the fact of the character. I think that these are nice looking residences. I agree there may be some issues, but I'm a little bit less concerned about that. What I am concerned about is transit. We talk about not having enough parking. We talk about, we need to make sure that there's 2 cars per home. So a good solution to this is making sure that there's good transit options. I saw on the transit planning slide, you had 2 bus lines from it, 554 and 558. That's the same bus lines, commuter peak, off-peak. And I already think that the service levels are low, waiting the transit network kind of at the edge from Wheeling. So I'd like to pose a question. What is the plan to increase transit options, to give people alternatives to a vehicle? So we're not just putting in more parking, but we're also giving people alternatives, and we're giving people opportunities to get where they need to go within Reston. And to that, I also just want to add, I'd like to understand, who are we looking to kind of, is this going to be, as someone mentioned, kind of Tyson's Corner, just a commuter apartments for people who aren't going to be in the Reston community? The whole point of Reston is to live, work, and play. So how are we making sure that the people there are living, working, playing in the Reston community, that there's opportunities for low-income housing, or for opportunities for people to live there, and make sure that this is growing kind of in the spirit, not just the letter of the law, but the spirit of how Reston was originally planned. And finally, I do quite agree with the point on North Village Road. It's extremely concerning to me. I see people going 25 miles an hour down that 10-mile-an-hour stretch all the time. And I think there's only potential for that to increase, even with a 10% increase. So those are the points I want to make.
Hi, my name's Elaine. I live in Timberview. I've met a lot of you indirectly or just in the past couple of days. I have a question. Obviously, the people who are proposing this, and the supervisor in Fairfax County, you're all hearing from us. We're all pretty much saying the same thing. What is going forward? What opportunities are there to change this project? What's going to happen? Are we speaking?
I'll speak after you finish. I have like interested collectively.
Okay, because I just want to know, are you hearing what we're saying? The density is huge, it's not in keeping, and we're all kind of saying the same thing. There's a lot of safety concerns, but it's fine to develop, but let's have it controlled. Let's have it in keeping with the character of our neighborhoods, And then just speaking to some of the things that came up today, I'm confused about a couple of things. Fairfax County Schools is saying that they're not expecting any more mass. We know very traditionally the reason that everybody actually moves to North Point Reston is to go to Buzz Aldrin schools. And I know people that work out, I've had people approach me who live in South Reston who said, can I sign up with you so that my child can go to Buzz Aldrin? So I think there's a big miss on this. And then the flip side of that is, if you're scaling in Fairfax County schools and so forth is just expecting, and the developers are just expecting only basically adult community members that are going to be scaled in there, the parking is not working. The amount of spaces are not going to work, because each person is going to be at least 2 adults per, 1 to 2 to 3 adults per unit. So, because you're already saying that it's not going to be kids there. So the mass of people, do you understand what I'm saying? The mass of people that are going to be there most likely with cars. Maybe they're not using them during the week, maybe they take a bus, but those cars are there. And I've had communications with VDOT, and I've actually had VDOT out on numerous occasions because of the parking behind my house and the air brakes of the school buses that are parked there. They are legally parked there because they should not be dispensing air brakes. It's a designated neighborhood for non-air brakes. So my child, every morning after she got out of the NICU, has woken up at 4:30 on the dot to 5:30 the whole time that she was, growing up. And I begged schools and so forth. So I just think, you all are missing the point. Fairfax County's missing the point on that. I'm trying to think of anything else. I mean, obviously, it's inappropriate. It honestly looks like Inova Hospital to me. And I hope you really will engage with us and really work with the community to scale this back. Go down to the 21 per acre. All of us have to be good citizens here. And that includes the developers. We're not saying don't come in, don't redevelop, but let's all be good citizens. There's no reason that we can't do this and be successful together.
Hi, my name is Darlene Legriff. I live at Timberview also, and I actually back onto North Village Road as well. First, I want to say, Brian, I think you have a gem here. I think he's very good at what he does. He presents it very well. He's very accommodating, and I think they're really trying to work with us. So, as Aileen said, I hope that Rizzuto will continue to try to work with us. We know it's going to happen, but it's the massiveness and the size of it. Okay, as far as and I'm probably going to reiterate some of the same points, but I just want Supervisor Hutchins to know also how concerned we all are as citizens in the neighboring areas. I mean, just that photo alone shows the massiveness. It does look like Reston Hospital, or Inova Hospital from here. Okay, it does not conform to the first point of what the Reston rules are as far as the surrounding area. It's just massive. My big concern too was the North Village traffic, and I'm glad Gary brought that up. We saw that happen with North Village when they put kinder care up there at the other end of that street. Okay, it's a park, it's 10 miles an hour. We already have enough traffic there, enough people going through the stop sign. Matter of fact, we can't even keep trees or plants on that little island because people keep running through. Okay, so as far as traffic, what I see happening is because coming down Reston Parkway, make a right onto Center Harbor, trying to make a left into this complex, more people. They're not going to do it. They're going to continue down Reston Parkway. They're going to go on Wheeling. They're going to make right onto North Village and come up that way to make a right into it. So now you've created more traffic off of the North Village entrance. Okay? Now, good point about the Reston Parkway. The right turn in and just the right turn out. I mean, as an alternative. But this is certainly going to increase traffic on North Village Road, which is a park. Okay, we should not be a major thoroughfare. Massiveness, and as far as the peaceful feel, that is so true. Whoever, I think you said it over here. I mean, that's what we all feel here in Reston, and especially in North Point Village. And I think it was right. Giant gets enough business. They're competing with Harris Teeter. We still have enough business at Giant. So we don't need any more massive, building or high density in that particular area. We are all supporting it very well. My last question would be, when is this proposed to begin and how much time do we have? I haven't heard when this project might even get off the ground.
There's significant design work that goes into to get out of here, building permit in Fairfax County, which 18 months.
After the final approval, about 18 months after the final approval.
18 months after you design, so you got to spend at least 12 months to design, another 18, sometimes longer, to actually get it approved. So,
Can you please stand up so we can all hear back here?
yeah, sure. You want to
Sure.
online now? So I'll do it without the mic. If you can't hear me, let me know. She was asking about the timing.
Thank you.
This is working.
Here, come over here.
I'll use this one. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. The question was about timing, and what I was saying is it's years and not months away. We don't have a firm timeline because we don't have a firm timeline of getting a project approved, but to design something of this scale is about 12 months, and then once you've completed that design, you have to get a building permit, which is about an 18-month process in Fairfax County. So I would say 3 to 4 years before construction would commence.
Yeah, thank you. And I guess then, I hope that you will continue to work with us and do not rush through this process. Supervisor Hudson, I hope you do not rush through this process, because I think, as we said, it's going to happen, but let's just keep revising and revising until it's acceptable to everybody. I mean, that works for everybody. It's not going to be acceptable to everybody, I know, but that it works for everybody. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Margaret Fisher. I'm also from the Timberview neighborhood, and not that I have a whole lot of additional things, but I just wanted for Bizzuto and Supervisor Hudson to understand, just because you don't have 100 people standing up here saying it means that we agree with these plans. This notice here was the only notice that I had received about this meeting. And I know there was some, and I thank Suzanne for capturing a lot of the challenges and issues with this whole project. But the fact that this was the only one I received in the mail, and funny enough, every year, pretty timely, I get my $600+ for RE fees, but I had no really understanding of this, what was happening here, except for the last few weeks. So I think the communication, although Bizzuto has been having a lot of meetings, it wasn't getting out probably to the community members at large. So I wanted that to be realized. Many in our neighborhood feel the train has left the station, and I truly hope that is not the case. And some of the comments today will hopefully be heard. I also, when I looked at these drawings today, and this was the first time I could really try to see this, but without really a 3D rendition, but what I saw was VCU college dorms with a facade that looked like the Mosaic District. And I didn't see North Reston or the character of our neighborhood, which was stunning to me. So I just, we pay a lot to live in Reston, and we enjoy our quality of life here. I don't see how adding density is adding to our quality of life or making things better. And I also have concerns about the culture and the feel of what this massive density and look of this building, as well as it sets a precedence for the other garden-style apartments in the neighborhood. And I would ask, what is the plans for those other garden-style apartments, and if Bizzuto plans to change all of those particular looks. I do appreciate the changes that Bizzuto has made, especially on the safety concerns that I learned today, but I am disappointed, and I feel with Reston that the community is losing some of its voice. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, and before we move forward to the questions, Reston Association committees are going to give us an update on where they are.
I'm going to describe it. Yeah. I'm Larry Butler, Senior Director of Parks, Recreation, and Community Resources for Reston Association. What I want to do is briefly describe the land use and review process that Reston Association has. This is something we worked out with the county planning staff, the supervisor's office, and it was a way to, quite frankly, bring some process to what was before that. But not a very refined process. We have advisory committees. We have members of those advisory committees here tonight who we're going to get comments from, as well as some of our board members are here as well. But what I want to do is just touch base. I don't know if this will work. So we'll just go left to right. So essentially, a development program or development proposal that comes to our attention through the supervisor's office, or a developer will come to us and say, hey, we're going to be redeveloping in Reston, and we essentially begin that process of what you see here, which is essentially there are steps that we have to go through. And I want to make a very clear distinction that there are development projects in Reston that are subject to the covenants that have to go through our design review board. And then all of the projects generally in the corridor, many of which are underway right now, do not fall under Reston Association's purview. And a lot of people are confused by that. So what I really want to focus on here tonight, because we're here for St. John's Wood, are those projects that fall under the planned residential community zoning as well as fall under our covenants. So we get notified of a project, and we hope that the developer will provide a community meeting, either with our board and committees, or we will attend one of their general community meetings that has been set up by the supervisor's office. It's hard for me to read this, and I don't have it 100% memorized. For those projects that have to go to the design review board, for a large development like this, typically what happens, they go to the design review board for an information-only meeting. And that is, they're going to vet this project. And I think Masudo and Brian were in front of the design review board a couple times, at least 2 or 3 times, for information only, which is basically, as the design review board, what are some of the initial issues that they're going to see with, whether it's massing and things like that. And I want to be really clear too, the design review board's authority is really with design. The density question is set up, as you've heard here tonight, by Fairfax County. So to the extent that the architecture and design, which is landscaping and things like that, that doesn't really influence density. Now, a lot of people are confused by that. They say, well, the DRB should say it's going to be a 2-story building. Quite frankly, their purview is the architecture that's being proposed in harmony and so forth with the surrounding neighborhood and all those kinds of things that you've heard about tonight. The developer also has to go to the Reston Planning and Zoning Committee. And that is really sort of the end committee piece in Reston. So we have, through this process, we've got a great deal better communication and coordination with the Design Review Board and the Planning and Zoning Committee, something we've worked real hard at doing. Because what we were finding is that there were applicants going to the Planning and Zoning Committee. The Planning and Zoning Committee would ask them, have you been to the DRB, vice versa. And so what we're trying to do is coordinate those efforts so that everybody understands where these applications are in the process. And most importantly is this circle. This is essentially where we are right now with this application. There are changes that are requested of the applicant by the county, the planning staff, maybe the supervisor, the Planning and Zoning Committee, the Design Review Board, and all those revisions come back and get presented. And most often they get presented, as we've seen tonight, at a community meeting like this. And at some point then, when all those pieces are satisfied to the extent that the supervisor's office, the Design Review Board, which has approved this concept, again, there's a lot of details left on this plan that need to be approved by the Design Review Board. There will be many, unfortunately for Brian and Eric, there will be many more DRB meetings to go through before this plan, if this goes forward, is finalized. Lighting, signage, all those kinds of things go to the Design Review Board. But again, the massing, the general density question is really something that's handled through the Planning Office and the Planning and Zoning Committee. And I know many of you were at that meeting recently. After the Planning and Zoning Committee and the Design Review Board have granted approval to a project, it then goes to the Planning Commission of Fairfax County. And that's an opportunity also to be heard. The Planning Commission has a public hearing, and then the Planning Commission, if it gives it a favorable recommendation to move it forward to the Board of Supervisors, the Board of Supervisors also conducts a public hearing. So there are numerous opportunities to provide input on these projects. And I will say that having worked through a number of these in Reston, the St. John's Wood project, that and probably Tall Oaks are the two most meeting projects that I've seen in a long time. So it's been very interesting. So are there any fundamental questions about that? I just want to kind of, yes?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. This is very nice and very pretty, but the reality is that a lot of us feel that it was that there was intent in keeping this from the community.
Fine.
Nobody knew about it.
I knew about it.
Yeah.
It was an accident.
Let me speak to it.
We found this out I found this out by accident. And I kind of went ballistic. And
Okay,
I
where do you live?
No one, and then I canvassed the whole area. No one knew about it.
Where-
So this
where-
is kind of, I hate to use the word, this is kind of bull.
Well, that's RAs, and I wouldn't dare assign that to them.
It didn't
Okay?
work.
That's not the right appropriate
This did not
response.
work.
Well, I asked you a question because I wanted to see if I could answer it in the context of what you're raising. You said you didn't know anything about it. How close are you to the project?
I'm off North Village Road. I'm at Grass Lantern Court. There's several other people have stood up and said they knew nothing.
Okay, well, I guess there are. Okay, we can have a conversation. I know if you received the last piece, we extended the radius of the project because there were so many concerns. Generally, on the land use projects, you don't inform the entire community because it isn't part of the entire community on a direct relationship with the developer. We always publish it in our newsletter. You can pick up the newsletter. We hope you all hear from us. And that is the way we move through the zoning process. So it's immediate neighborhoods and beyond that. So if we've missed you, we will continue to update lists so that we can make sure that we're not missing people.
We're in Timberview, right across the street from St. John's, and we did not hear anything until just this last couple of weeks.
Okay,
So
well then we will have to look, and I don't know what we were using.
All I'm saying is it's fishy. There's something fishy going.
Well,
That's
let me.
what a lot of us think.
Okay, I don't fish. That's not what I do. And I think we all try and be honest. We are here to hear from you, and that is not to sneak out the door if you think that. So that is the perception that we want. I think Larry has presented this because I think there is an opportunity to improve the process internally since Reston happens to be the only community in Fairfax County that has a design review board. That is the exception that has been part of Reston all of these years. It has been the earliest to ever have a planning and zoning. And it is a requirement that the developers come here to you. And so they don't have scenery motives. They're required and they come back and forth until they can work the plan out. And that's the intention always. So, and that is the reason that I think we've come tonight. So if you're being missed, all you need to do is opt into our newsletter and you're on the communications list and you can see a full page of all of the Hunter Mill District cases every month and sometime more frequently. And so you will know it. If it is in your neighborhood, you will get your neighborhood.
Why didn't we get notification until
I cannot answer that question. I don't know why the only one that you got was this last one, but we intentionally made sure that we went back around and expanded the radius.
And I have a question too. Who here got notification of the design review board meetings? I'm just curious.
They went out 2 days before the meeting, 2 weeks ago. There was a meeting 2 weeks ago, and the notice went out 2 days prior to that to many of the cluster association. So that wasn't in the law notice. I think this is more than just sending an email that there's got to be this massive project. This is about the community. This is about the character of Reston. This is about our neighborhood.
I just wanted to point out, because I went to that DRB meeting, and it was quite a waste of time. I found out afterward that all the community comments that we made were not recorded in the minutes. Basically, a lot of people spent time going to that meeting, raising concerns, and the DRB still went ahead and approved the concept plan, even when they heard a whole room full of people raising concerns. And that is, to me, the most disturbing of all of this. I mean, there are people from all over the community. A lot of people didn't know about it, but the ones who were there all raised concerns, and the DRB still proceeded forward. And that is just not in line with, it doesn't matter how many boards we have. If the boards don't listen to the community, it really doesn't matter. And I'm quite concerned because the DRB doesn't really, it's not the right forum for these kinds of big development projects. Like you mentioned, Larry, this is one of the biggest ones. The discussion before Reston Prosecutor came online was about the tire mechanic shop's color of the walls of their and the lighting of their building. And the DRB spent more time arguing with that person about his design than they spent questioning Bozzuto. I found a design flaw or a flaw in the drawing. I had to point it out to Bozzuto. The DRB didn't catch it, but there were 6 stories in one of the sections. I mean, we expect more from the DRB. When we come there, we expect to be heard.
I want to say the Design Review Board is an appointed separate authority from the association staff and the association board of directors. And they have a set of guidelines that is adopted. Those guidelines are what they follow, and that's what they apply. So,
Does the guidelines include that 2 of the people, including the chair of the DRB, did not want to vote on the Bozzuto plan? They wanted to table it. But Bozzuto insisted that they vote. And then the whole DRB committee caved in and approved what they had been presented with. And that was very, very odd, to say the least. Very, very, very strange.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Kate Fulkerson, CEO for the Reston Association. It is an honor to have you all here tonight. We are honored to be doing this with Supervisor Hudgens. We very much understand, I'm going to talk from my perspective. Reston Association very much understands the importance that our residents be notified and have an opportunity to hear about the changes that are happening in our community. And what Larry has presented to you this evening is something that has been in the works for 2 years. Because when you look at that chart up there, take a look at the last 2 arrows, okay? It's very important you understand this. The last 2 arrows right here, okay? You can't, unfortunately, you can't read it there. We did have handouts going out. So anybody have what it says here? Fairfax County Planning Commission hearing, okay? And then it says Board of Supervisors. Does everybody see that? Okay. This is the point in time Reston Association DRB was getting involved in these projects. That's pretty significant, because look at all of the rest that we missed. We're not doing that anymore. Bear with me. We're not doing that anymore. We're involved earlier on in the process. We worked very hard with Supervisor Hudgens in that. Even though things were available to view, we didn't have the opportunity to have a conversation on these. So this is part of the reason why Larry's presenting this, because we want to get involved early on. We want to help. We want to make sure that we know what's going on. We're paying more close attention to it. Supervisor's right. There's a lot of information that's always available through her newsletters. But we're making sure that we get involved. We want to help. This is why we helped call the meeting. We said, what can we do to assist, to have a community meeting? The Design Review Board asked a couple of weeks ago for a community meeting. The first thing we did was address the supervisor and say, what can we do? What can we do to help?
Be a little bit mistaken. The community meeting was already planned because they had been to so many others, and because I have not been in attendance, I wanted the community meeting here. And the Design Review Board has always had prior involvement. I appreciate the work of RA wishing to coordinate their work, because it is not our role to engage ourselves in Design Review Board recommendations. They're recommending to us, and thus we stay out of that until they bring their recommendation forward. So they are supported, and I think it's rightfully so, supported by the RA organization, since they really are the only statutory Design Review Board that exists in Fairfax County.
So who's going to listen to us?
Well,
let me go back to the listening part and talk about how really to be more, to be beneficial to you in listening to you and how to get back on the right track in terms of what you need to hear, who you need to hear it from, and how it informs the developer. Because I think it really is the question of the foundation of what the comprehensive plan says for Reston. It is not just, we can wish all we want it to be, but that process is an open process that is iterative, but it does not say that you will not have high density. All of the village centers in Reston have density. All of the houses in Reston have density. And as I said to you, we went through a comprehensive plan a couple of years ago to make certain that we didn't find the disruption that you feel in some of these areas, that it was totally unacceptable. The only reason that I think the comprehensive plan allows the modicum that they have here with the number is because it's across the street from a village center. Village centers in Reston, in its plan, are intended to have greater density. And I know the character of neighborhood is an important piece for you, and that's the role that the Design Review Board does in order to give advice so that they can make the character more in line what your neighborhood is about. And that is the key part. And I don't want to, and I say it very openly because I don't want to misguide anybody in believing that there should never be a building more than 1 story or 2 stories in that location. That location was intended to have higher density than it had on its original building. And so might there be the case of every place that there is a multi-family building. That is how it was defined in the original plan. And the only adjustments were made is for it to be less than what it could have been before to some regards. And I know I would get questions on it, so I will start. Let me start with somebody who hasn't spoken, and that gentleman there.
Yes, I live right across the street from this, so that's my bus stop. It seems kind of odd that you talk about listening to us, and that's very nice in psychotherapy, but we're actually trying to change what happens here. And your answer, even though there seems to be solid opposition, is say back in the 1960s, some people agreed on a plan. But everyone here seems to dislike that plan. So who do you represent? The people who were actually here, or the people who made the plan in the 1960s?
Well, I appreciate that, and I really appreciate it, and I appreciate it in the context, and I probably will get in further trouble. The Reston plan is a great plan, and you didn't end up here because it was a bad plan. And so some of us don't take the liberty to say that all of the things that they planned before was not something that we should have done because we're all here now. And one of the things that is most important about that plan is it's a diversity of housing. Reston wasn't planned like every part of Fairfax County, in which they segregated out by income and everybody else. And it is clearly written in the plan, and we didn't take it out when we did the comprehensive plan, so that it would not change who Reston is. Now, that does not mean that this cannot be a great development in the context which you would like to see it. And I think we can keep working with the applicant to do that. But I will tell you, there is, in my role that I play, really a guardian of what that plan was. Because it isn't just about who all can bring their dollars here and live. It's how do we have a community that represents diversity of all things. And one of the things that you find in Reston has the greatest diversity is the diversity of housing. where lots of communities would love to have it and they don't have it. So I'm going to stop because I came to listen and I don't want to preach, and I do want to listen, and I do want to contradict you and say that I am listening. But I just didn't want us to be too far off of what it is. The person in the blue shirt, lady, I think it's
me?
I'm sorry, it's purple.
I live in Hemingway Cluster.
May I give you a mic because I think that speak.
Okay, I live in Hemingway Cluster, and one of the things you said is that you expand the radius. Now, how do you define that radius? Because when I'm looking at the people are here, and there's a woman from Brass Lantern, which is across from Hemingway. It looks like it stayed on one side of Center Harbor and forgot the other side of Center Harbor. And my house, which I know many of you have passed my house, I am the only house on Hemingway Cluster that faces Center Harbor. I am dead on the street. I'm the house with the sculpture in the yard. And I have the bus stop. I have the buses that I used to get out at 5 o'clock in the morning and knock on the window to tell them to quit idling. I said, I'm up, but, I think that one of the things when we talk about radius and when we start talking about community, given the way that Center Harbor runs between Wheelie and Reston Parkway, that whole section is impacted by the project. I'm not saying anything about the density, but what it does do to traffic egress from North Village on the other side, how people cross the street between North Village and Center Harbor, those are big issues. How people are going to come out of the project if you put an egress on that exits Center Harbor. Are they going to make only right turns, left turns? Are people line up as it is now to make a right turn or left turn with a stop sign at Center Harbor and North Village? So you don't think about it unless you're in the line trying to go to work. The parking is an issue. The reality is that we are urban but not. We're high density but not. People bring cars, whether they use them all week or not. We don't have, there's a little bit of Uber activity out our way. We've had a big issue about people picking up, I forgot what those cars are that, flex cars and things like that, zip cars. So if we had, those kinds of things, people who don't drive during the week might not bring a car that needs to be parked. We've had on Center Harbor, there's that green truck that used to sit there all the time. And I'm wedged between this project and the other rental project. Rentals are good for communities because it makes the community diverse. Having mixed use is good for the community because that's what makes Reston special. But you still got to make it where people can walk across the street, that is a Reston value. You still have to have it where people can get out to go to work. And I can tell you, since the metro has come, if you go out on Wheelie, and it starts at 6 o'clock in the morning, because I leave a lot of times at 5 in the morning, 5:30, the Wheelie traffic is unbelievable, and it is fast. And it's on the, people are whizzing right by that elementary school on the backside. So we've got to really deal, traffic is an issue. And despite what the studies are, you can study and come up with numbers, but are you really talking about true human behavior? So we have to look at how people behave as opposed to what the numbers are. Complexes, they have 1.7, 1.9. I haven't seen a 0.9 car. And maybe those little,
it's a little
But those are the things that I'm concerned about. What do you define as radius? And we didn't get anything. We had something stuck in our door. I think our cluster president got something, but most of my cluster is down on the lake. And there's just this group of us that are backing on Center Harbor.
I live on Churchill, in Churchill Place. We have, I think, 14 buildings, and we have 12 units in every building. We're only 2 stories high in the front. In the back, you can go down and have a 3rd unit. And we are multi-family buildings, and we do not look like this. We look just like we should for North Reston. And I have one other point. Whoever decided that they did not want the high traffic coming out on Reston Parkway, which has 2 lanes going one way and 2 lanes the other, with turn lanes besides, what do they think it's going to do to little tiny Center Harbor?
I wish I could tell you there's an intervention for that, but that's the Virginia Department of Transportation that controls Reston Parkway and Wheatley Avenue. And probably the answer is that those are the primary arteries where people can travel through Reston. Because the traffic isn't the Reston traffic, it's the people who are coming to work in Reston. And so that's a challenge that they've told us the same about Wheatley Avenue, and they've told us the same about Reston Parkway, and no matter what I tell them, that's where.
Well, I think that we can go across the street and drive through Churchill.
I think that when they submit their studies, they will get input from them again, and then that's key.
Hi, how are you? My name is Jake Boscia, and I live in the Sutton Ridge condominiums across from Kindergarten. It was a big issue about '98, as you well know.
I remember well.
Do you know how many cranes are in Reston right now?
8.
8. I count 9.
Oh, I
Okay? You missed one. All right. That is a problem. There's also the extension of the Reston sub-metro all the way to the airport. They have 2 cranes, okay? At least 2. We don't need any more cranes in Reston. Simple as that. I mean, I really don't. It's just too much, and it's really a problem right now with all these buildings going up. And these are 22-story buildings going up, and all rentals. You got one at the town center, you got another one, you got Signature, you got this, you got that. That's all rental property, as is this. We just can't take that. This project has to go. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that needs to have?
Behind you.
Okay, I'm going here because he hasn't spoken.
Appreciate your being here and staying with us this long, Supervisor. All of you as well.
Can't hear you.
Just appreciate you showing appreciation for the effort that they are making and that Rizzuto and the architects are making. All that said, I think the message has been received that I feel generally there wasn't adequate notice. I live in the smallest cluster in Reston, 18 homes, but it's directly across. Bridge cluster, it's directly across, and we never heard anything until the petition was circulated. All that said, it's been over half a century that the density has been like this. To ignore the facts on the ground, I understand the plan, the master plan was revalidated in 2013, but for half a century, it has not been this way. People moved here, have lived here, and enjoyed the community with that expectation. I don't think that can be ignored. Am I understanding the DRB chair correctly when you say it's essentially out of their purview? Is that what you're arguing?
The DRB is a completely separate authority, and their decisions can only be appealed back to the designer.
All right. clearly the message has been received. I don't know that there's much to add to it, and I don't think piling on serves any useful purpose. Very appreciative of the fact that you're going to try and communicate with all of them. And I appreciate that it's a long dance. And I don't think the messages that the folks in the community are anti-development, they what they perceive as appropriate development. I understand that the tremendous effect that has on the economics for the developer. We have to be cognizant of that as well. It's got to be a viable project for them to produce the amenities and all the other things we want. The traffic authorities, transients, and I understand it affects the federal subsidies, the transit times through these intersections. But I think we need to settle more time and attention with these transit authorities because they are clearly being unreasonable and are not willing to have an honest and open discussion on this.
On the entrance issue, I don't disagree with you that it is an issue, unfortunately.
I mean, everyone here seems to realize that having an entrance on Center Harbor Road to this development is a big problem. And everybody here says so. Now, how do we get to VDOT so that they?
Well,
what do we do?
No, we'll gladly go back to VDOT.
Okay.
I just don't want to humor you and tell you VDOT's going to say yes. That's the only thing. I just finished a development down in Tall Oaks, and that sounds like an impossibility. I've done a Unitarian church. They would not give additional options there. And I'm not the traffic engineer, but the fact is, when you can have a free-flowing highway or roadway, every time you put another intersection there, it has to stop and it changes it. And it's hard to be convincing to them, but we continue to do it. I think everybody we come across that's on a major road off of Wheelie or off of Reston Parkway has that same concern. We are challenged in Reston because we have very many roads that are not throughput roads, Wheelie Avenue being the primary one. And so it is a challenge for us. But, you know, we submit the request and try to convince the urgency of it. But I think we also have to think of other ways of handling that traffic out of Center Harbor and other ways there. But I just don't want
She asked a good question, and the question could be extended to both you, Supervisor, and the RA. People in the room do not want the way it is. How do we stop it? Don't justify the status quo.
Are you asking me about the VDOT question?
I'm asking you about the whole thing.
Oh, the project?
Yeah.
Well, the project will go through the process of the developer having to refine his presentation, and if that is a no, we'll have to see where it goes there with the planning, the design review board, the planning commission, and the board of supervisors. And that's always the process. It doesn't stop in the middle of the room, because they walked into a process that they have to get to the end of.
Can I ever change the master plan? That's really
This lady's not speaking.
Thank you. Am I on? Yeah. Thank you. I'm Diane, my husband George. I want to say, first of all, we're residents of Reston and have been for a number of years. Secondly, we're 20-year residents of St. John's Wood. So in addition to everything that we've talked about tonight, you're also going to have a few thousand displaced persons as we all have to move as well. However, our first concern is Reston, and I'm with everyone in this room, of course. We don't feel this is the right type of complex for the North Village area. What I haven't heard are, who is this benefiting? Like, we're the residents in the area, and we know what all the downside of it is, and we recognize Reston has to be diverse in its residences and in its population, but what are the benefits? Who's going to, will Giant make more money, like, other than the developer? Who does this really benefit?
May I answer that
What are the
question?
benefits?
I believe that the Zudo has to have this plan at a certain scale in order to justify their investment. They have to make a certain amount of money.
Right.
That's who the plan is benefiting.
That's right.
Period. Now, if they scale down the plan, so it's 2, 3, and 4 stories, are they going to be able to generate enough income to justify the project? And I really think that the economic piece to this is the most important part, and it's not being, it's being kind of pushed under the carpet.
Okay, I think you're asking the same questions, just in a different way. I can't answer what their economics are, because I've not been involved in that. But I don't think anybody gets into anything. You did buy a house that would have automatically no value to you. Therefore, I don't think they're going to get into the process that doesn't give them some return value. The question that you really want to know is, if this development goes forward, is it going to go forward in a way that is acceptable to you? And I think that's...
How does it benefit the residents?
Well, you know, I really have a hard time answering the question of how it benefits the community, because I always look at everybody in the community as a benefit. And so if I am not seeing the person that's going to move into Reston behind me, I want to know that if they do, they will be a benefit when they come here.
People that are in the community today, how does it benefit those?
I think I understand the question, and this lady.
I would like to address the character question. The character question. That the gentleman who was sitting next to me brought up. Yeah. I've lived in Reston for 20 years. This is my daughter. She grew up here. I live in Deer Forest, which is across Reston Parkway from all of this, next to where Great Owl lives. When the gentleman asked you about how this would affect character, I don't think you even understood what you meant. I'm a structural engineer. I've worked in the construction industry. I know where you're coming from. But, I'm sorry, but there's a big difference. There's a sense of community here. The North Point area, yes, it has rentals, it has townhouses. It is wonderful that in Reston you have a great diversity of architectural styles, ways to live. Hampton Point is an excellent example, which is right across the street from where you're going to do the construction. You'd never know that those were condominiums. They look like townhouses. They're gorgeous architecturally. This is terrible. The architecture does not fit the community. The character, what you do by doubling the number of rentals in North Point, you are changing the way we live, the community feeling we have. Renters are transient. And I'm not saying everyone who rents is transient, but when you double the number of rentals, you are changing the neighborhood. Right? You know, we moved in 20 years ago. My kids could ride their bikes to downtown Reston safely. You know, my neighbors, so Deer Forest is all single family homes. I have neighbors my age, I'm 60, who now their kids are grown. They hold hands, they go to the grocery store and walk home. It's just kind of, you know, it's a nice place to live. I didn't move to Reston to live in an urban environment. It's being urbanized by the subway, which is bringing crime and everything. It's really changing. I understand, you know, Brazil certainly has an interest in redeveloping this property. The property value is much higher now. The land is more valuable. But this does not fit our neighborhood. Look at Hampton Point if you want to see something that architecturally does fit our neighborhood. Character, this gentleman meant, he didn't mean architectural character. He meant the way it feels to live here. The gentleman who talked about coming home to Reston, you know, comparing Reston to Herndon, where you come in, the trees are there. It feels a certain way. All the trees are tearing down around the toll road and the greenway. It changes the way it feels. And that's what I'm saying. I know as a developer, I don't understand where you're coming from. But he meant the character of living here, not the architectural character. And architecturally, that just does not fit. Please go across to Hampton Point. Look at those. I know they're lower, lower story buildings. But what you have proposed looks like it belongs in town center. It does not belong in North Point. And I don't even shop in Reston Town Center anymore. I drive all the way out to Dulles or somewhere else because I can't park anymore. You know, and I know the master plan when Simon was still alive, he mentioned wanting to develop the North Point Shopping Center. He would put in parking garages because there was too much parking on the, taking up space. I was horrified. You know, parking garages are inherently unsafe. And so it's just changing where we live. My daughter had, you know, she's 28 now, and she looks like she's 18. She's been looking at Hampton Point as second place, as great places she'd love to move to and buy. But we're like, oh my gosh, we can't buy Hampton Point because right across from that construction is going to happen in St. John's Wood. And by the way, the only reason I knew about this meeting was I happened to go to Starbucks today, and whoever the wonderful person was who posted that notice on the board, I saw it when I was waiting for my coffee.
And we both did.
It affects us across the Reston Parkway. It affects our housing values, the traffic when we can walk around, the fact that the neighborhood isn't transient, that affects our home values. I've lived here 20 years, I care.
Are there any other questions before we let Mr. Winterholm make his last comments for following up?
I don't need that, I'm the type A person. But question for Reston Association. Now that we've signed up, you had our physical addresses, our email addresses. I mean, I backed up right to the east side of this development. I didn't know anything until one of my neighbors put a flyer in my door. I'd like to have some regular communication about it if I could. Thanks.
We all would.
Right.
Thank you, everyone. There's been a lot said tonight, and we thank you all for coming out and taking the time to give your feedback to us. We had obviously the TRP meeting, P&Z meeting, and now this meeting. As you see, we haven't made any changes to the plan from those earlier meetings. It was too short of a time period to do that. So you all saw the same presentation that we gave to the TRP and the P&Z. But I am glad to see a number of different faces than in some of those earlier meetings. And that's very heartening to me. I am very concerned that people haven't gotten notice of the project. That was absolutely not our intent at any point along the way of this project. If you look at the list of community meetings that we've been to, you will see that we're trying to reach everybody. And to the extent that that's not happening, we need to work with the supervisor's office and with RA to make sure that that does happen. And we will certainly do that. And so I'm glad to see more people we haven't seen already. I would be glad to see additional people, and I want to make sure that everybody is aware of these meetings, because that is a concern to me and us and our team. We've been making changes along the way with this project. We've been trying to respond to the concerns that we've heard and address them from various different groups and from the county staff as well. That process of review will continue, as you heard tonight already. This is not certainly the last meeting that we are going to have. In addition to the formal county meetings, we'll look at additional meetings with you all as well. But I just want to make sure it's very clear that we want to make sure that you are all aware of the project. And however we need to do that, we are happy to do that. So with that, I'll close. We will go back with our team and we will look at our design and we will take into account your feedback and see what changes we can potentially make to the plan. And then we will come back to you again as we've done various rounds of meetings. And we will present to you whatever updates we have, one of which will certainly be about the traffic study. At minimum, we're going to redo that. We'll talk to VDOT in the county again about the entrance on Reston Parkway. And there are other things that we'll talk about. But we'll be back to you with an update.
One last question. Are there enough signatures we could get that might make you reconsider this? Like if we said we could come up with 100,000, 50,000 or whatever, is there any way we can present you with that to where you get what we're trying to say? Because we'll be happy to go out and door knock to get this. Is there any way to prevent this from happening? Is there anything we can do to prevent this from happening?
Well, it's going to be difficult for me as the lawyer on behalf of my client. So I will be I'm a very honest guy. I'll be very honest with you about that. But in all seriousness, what I will say is this. I don't think it's the number of people who come to any one meeting and the number of signatures that you will get on a petition. We want to make sure that we are reaching each of the clusters that are affected by this development. And to the extent that that's not happening, we need to make sure that it does happen in coordination with the supervisor's office and with the Reston Association.
You had them here tonight, basically. You've had everybody from all those clusters. You've had representatives from those clusters.
This is the area, excuse me, Ryan, I normally listen to the abutting property owners.
We're abutting.
Okay, well, we sent letters to everyone that I have highlighted here. Now,
We need to
it's
send
not-
it to each household. We need to send it to each household.
It was like
Because
600,
does have.
it was 600 and some,
Yeah,
or,
and who should
no,
pay
what I'm
for
saying,
that?
that's who we mailed to.
We need to send it
Well, I mean-
to all the community members
Okay.
all the time.
We have,
So what I'm saying is, and even if everyone seems to have the same issues, even if they weren't part of this circle, if you will, we can extend the circle, the area, to incorporate more people if need be. But as I said, we did send at least 600 letters out.
Yeah, but you still don't listen to us, so that's our concern.
Well, all I can do is mail. Mail the notice.
we're abutting.
There are concerns about the density and how many people are going to come into this place. I know you said you heard the design review. How about the density? That's the crucial issue.
So,
Did you hear about that?
we heard.
You understand?
Yes, we heard it.
Because you started at 600, you came down to maybe 500, and now you're in 550 or something.
We're at 467.
Plus
46.
That's 500.
That is correct. So we've been making changes to the plan over the course of this project, and we've been doing that in response to your comments. We have not changed the plan since the DRP meeting or the P&Z meeting, because that's too short of a time period for us to make changes.
Okay, but
So now, so let me finish. So we had the DRP meeting, we had the P&Z meeting, and we had this meeting. And the idea for this meeting is to get additional feedback from folks who weren't either aware of or interested in coming to the DRP meeting or the P&Z meeting. And I'm glad that you're all here. This meeting was intended for the community specifically, and the people who are, in the neighborhoods that Golden noted in her map, right? And now we have an opportunity to figure out what we're going to do with all that feedback, right? So no, we haven't made any changes since a week or two ago, but we've collected all your feedback in this round of meetings, just like we had prior rounds of meetings, and we're going to figure out what to do.
And I've been to a lot of those meetings.
And we've made changes at each
Yes.
round of meetings.
But you're still twice as many as you have. That's
Going over.
So you're gonna do as many,
Made the concerns.
you're trying to get as many units as you can by the approval authorities.
Well, sure, that's the
Little
economic.
bit of time. I'm sorry, but I'm not buying it.
Thank you very much for coming, and I'll see you tomorrow. We have 4 days, and I have, thank you very much.